Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is Ephraim B. Martin. Welcome to another live stream. Grow that YouTube channel. Appreciate you, fathers. All fathers are welcome, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and/or culture. Mi amigos, bienvenido. En aquí, hoy. Gracias. Appreciate you. Now, fathers, we have another good live stream today. What we are going to be discussing today, fathers, childhood trauma is not okay. So it's going to be a sensitive subject for a lot of fathers out there and a lot of parents out there. When we talk about when we bring childhood, our children, we bring them childhood trauma. You know, I'm a father of 4 adult daughters, 36, 30, 26, and 24. And one of the things that I'm learning as older I get, I'm 59 years of age. I speak to a lot of adults. A lot of adult children, they don't mess with their parents, or they've cut their parents off. They have a real bad relationship with their parents. And when you speak to these adult children, a lot of them have decided, because of their childhood trauma, their parents don't exist to them. They're done with their parents. Or in their words, we don't fuck with our parents, right? So I want to have a discussion, and I want to share with you today some research that I've done on childhood trauma. Now, I come from Generation X, right? And our parents before us, they did the best that they could. They raised us the best that they could. They installed in us the best that they could. And I would think that being a Gen X parent, we did the exact same thing with our children. I would hope that, right? And being the father of 2 millennial daughters and 2 Gen Z daughters, I had to raise my daughters a different way than how I was raised. Now, that's not to say that my mother, who raised me, I came from a single parent household. I'm the baby of 5 by default, because my father was murdered when I was 2.5 years of age in 1968. So I had to take a different approach with my very own baby girls. My mother taught me a lot. She was a very attentive woman. She was very caring. She was very loving. She was very nurturing. So my mother was awesome. I didn't experience any type of childhood trauma. I can promise you that. My mother was one of the most incredible human beings to ever walk the earth. So I personally and my siblings, we didn't receive, I can speak for my siblings, childhood trauma from our mother, right? Today's kids, a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Z kids, they're not fooling with their parents. They've cut them off entirely. They're done with them, as they say. And it's interesting when you speak to these young people and you ask them why, what happened? You know, why are you not fooling with your parents? And their list is long from their childhood trauma. And I asked them, have they, addressed their trauma? And most of them have not. And most of them are not going to, because they don't feel that a therapist could help them, which is unfortunate, because I have an amazing relationship with my adult baby girls. I hang out with them as often as I can. I speak with them all the time. So as a Gen X parent, I don't understand the disconnect between our generation, millennials, and Gen Z kids. I really don't. I don't understand how our generation of parents cannot sit down with their kids and listen to their children and work out whatever needs to be worked out. My experience has been listening to these adult children. They just want acknowledgement from their parents. That's where they want to start. They're not trying to go back to their childhood. They're not trying to unearth a lot of things in their childhood. But what they do want Gen X parents to do and baby boomer parents to do is acknowledge and have that discussion. And according to them, a lot of Gen X and baby boomer parents are just not willing to do that. So what we have today is we have a lot of millennial kids, adults, and Gen Z. They're just not fooling with their parents. They've cut them off. That saddens me. It really, really saddens me because I don't understand it. I cannot imagine not having a relationship with my daughters. I've never done anything in my daughters' lives that would make them put me on blast, put me on the internet, and talk about their father. I've never done anything in my daughters' lives to embarrass them. I've never brought any pain to them. I've never brought any suffering to them. I've never brought any disrespect to them. One of the things I tell my daughters all the time, my job at 59 years of age as your father is to enjoy you women. I got you to 18. Now it's your turn. Do you. But I'm a part of their life because I've never done anything crazy. I've never traumatized my children. I've never made their lives unsafe, unprotected. I've never done anything to make them not want to be a part of their father's and mother's life. I can't understand it. So it's foreign to me. And I understand, though. I may not agree with a lot of the decision making that millennials and Gen Z do, but you know what? It's their life. We did our part. But I do have a relationship with my baby girls. I will always have a relationship with my baby girls until God takes me off this earth. So that's what I want to share today. I want to share videos with you. I did some pretty good research, right? Grow That YouTube channel, Fathers of Daughters, is all about helping fathers understand our sense of urgency that we must have with our baby girls in order to sustain long-term, sustainable relationships with them, lifelong, right? My book, Daddy's Girls, is available at Amazon.com. I talk about this in my book. My book and my live streams, my videos are complementary of each other, right? This is my 57th live stream today. I've been live streaming consistently since July of 2023. I feel great about it. I feel good about it. This is my way of giving back to fathers, right? Because I want to see all fathers have great relationship with their children, with their baby girls. So fathers, this is what I'm going to share with you today. I've got about 8 videos that I'm going to share with you. The first 4 videos I'm going to share with you, I'm going to run them back to back to back to back. And then I'll come back and give you some commentary on those videos. And then I have 4 additional videos after that. All of my videos are fair use, according to YouTube. At least that's what they tell me. You know, YouTube does some stupid stuff sometimes. Sometimes I've had a few of my live streams where I've had to go back and make some cuts to them because apparently I was told I'm using third-party content, which makes no sense to me. But, you know, YouTube is what it is. So hopefully all 8 of the videos that I'm using today, YouTube doesn't have a problem with me using, and they're going to be part of the live stream. If not, and I have to make changes, I'll do what I have to do. But all the videos that I am showing you today will be in the description, even if I have to cut them out of my live stream. Okay? So fathers, I appreciate you. I welcome you. Right? So let's be objective and let's be receptive with what's being shared today. All right? Okay, fathers, let me get this first video set up. Okay, fathers, first video.
According to world-renowned narcissism expert Dr. Ramani Durvasula, narcissists take a major toll on our mental and emotional health. Narcissists are very difficult to spot, yet they instill intense feelings of low self-worth, insecurity, and depression in their victims. So spotting the nuanced signs is crucial to informing your own mental health care. From your parents to your boss to anyone else in your life, Dr. Ramani walks through each type of relationship. She sheds light on how to spot the signs of narcissism, how to manage that specific relationship if they are indeed a narcissist, and what specific challenges you might face while doing so. In our first session, Dr. Ramani breaks this down for a critical relationship, your parents. we've talked a lot about narcissism on Med Circle, and it is needed. It is, will you call it not the epidemic of our time, but certainly.
I consider it a public health crisis of our time. I really, really do. And I know I take a lot of flack for saying that, but Kyle, I say it from a very serious place. What I am seeing in my office with my consultation clients, day after day after day, it's horrifying. And these are people who are lovely, smart, wise, kind, thoughtful, I think could be even push themselves, even more ambitious people who completely silence themselves, who cut off their own wings in the names of these relationships. I've had it. I mean, I'm tired of this. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm tired of the fact that the mental health community hasn't launched enough of a response to this. I mean, I've made it a single-minded crusade, and I recognize that. But when I see in 1 hour, just explaining, just educating someone about their story, they walk out, and sometimes they'll email me 2 weeks ago, and they're like later, and they'll say, that's just it. I got it now. And I'm doing so much better. But these people, their health is falling apart. This isn't just like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Their health, the stress, the effect on their health in every possible way. People getting sicknesses that don't make sense. They make sense to me. Being in the proximity of someone who's behaving in such a toxic manner is a problem. And the other struggle for me is that many people say, well, the narcissist went through a lot too. I get it. I never, ever would say to someone, I would invalidate your trauma, but I'm always going to judge you on how you're behaving today.
I get that.
You know, and so it's this idea that, well, these bad things happen to me, so that is my rationale for why I'm going to continue to abuse you. That does not work for me.
Absolutely. Well, one of the first narcissists people meet is their parents.
Yes.
So with narcissists being 80% men, 20% women, does that fall into the parent guidelines as well? Okay.
By and large, people are going to come in and talk about narcissistic fathers. However, because a narcissistic mother is so impactful, because in many families, the mother is often a primary caregiver, that they get more face time with her. And as a result, if she's narcissistic, the impacts may be more significantly felt.
We hear about more. I feel like I hear more about narcissistic mothers than I do fathers from the peripheral.
But I think it's an impact issue.
Right.
But I have to say, though, a lot of the women I work with will say, it's interesting, the narcissistic fathers would often get a pass because they were often just really authoritarian and really controlling. And it was as though all the fathers were like that. So their father didn't stand out per se, but if you had a particularly invalidating father, it makes an impact, particularly for women. And what is interesting is that, you know, we're in a generation now where we're seeing more same-sex parents. So if we see two men who are raising a child, you know, obviously if one of those men is narcissistic, then that's going to impact the child. And there may be a greater likelihood of that because it's more likely to be seen in men. So there's some of the story sort of telling itself as we go, but it both, whether it's father or mother, it makes an impact, especially if the father is a particularly malignant narcissist and is cruel to the mother and to everyone in the family system. Even if he's just written off as the mean authoritarian dad, that cruelty really has impacts on everyone in the system and can pull the mom out of the parenting game. She's so beaten down by the narcissistic dad that she wasn't always able to rally for her kids.
So what are some signs that people can look for that could indicate that their parents, one or both of them, are narcissists?
You know, it's interesting. When they look back on their childhoods, it's as though they thought, well, this is how mom always was. Mom was always selfish. Dad never showed emotion. Dad was never empathic. You know, my parents were always entitled. It's the alwaysness of it that makes it hard. So it's looking at what we always look at in narcissism. We look at, were they empathic? Were they able to talk about emotions? Were they able to go deep with their kids? One thing that narcissistic family systems are characterized is by parents who focus a lot on achievement and how their child looks and how they look to the community. So they love their straight A kids or their soccer playing kids or their kid who physically looks the way they want them to. In some cases, with a really narcissistic parent, they may favor the child who more physically resembles them. And in narcissistic families, it's not unusual to have some really complicated dynamics where one child, or maybe more than one child, but typically one, becomes the scapegoat. Something about them is not pleasing the narcissistic parent.
Yikes.
And it could either be at the level that they don't feel like that child's good enough, or that kid may be a threat, but they scapegoat that child. Or and we'll also see in these systems, the golden child, the child that is viewed as the one who represents, who is emblematic of all that narcissistic parent values. And they'll put a disproportionate resource in that child. You would think like, oh, the golden child's got it made. And in fact, they're like, the golden child often feels survivor guilt. That they may be very fond of their siblings and feel like, why am I being zeroed out? And it also carries with it guilt and expectation. If you're the golden child, it becomes very clear to you that you could be toppled off that pedestal. The scapegoat child in the system can show all the kinds of symptoms you might see in a child who's been exposed to childhood neglect or abuse. They may be very untrusting. You'll see children in the system trying to protect siblings from narcissistic parents. It gets really, really complicated. But many times it's a story that tells itself backwards. Like I'm hearing more and more from people who watch our Med Circle videos that like, gosh, I saw that. That's my mom. That's my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, I didn't know there was a word for this.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I really had a tough mom or dad. So a lot of times people think of their parents as difficult, selfish, challenging, not available, not present, neglectful. Those kinds of adjectives should be red flags that you might have actually had a narcissistic parent. And I've always said, I don't care about the label. Call it what you will.
That's so important.
Yeah, call it what you will.
In case they haven't heard that, explain why the label doesn't really matter.
A lot of people get lost in like, are they narcissistic? I got to figure this out. As though they're giving a diagnosis.
Right.
The adjective by itself is not diagnostic. No. If you really experience from this parent that they were difficult and selfish and cruel, there was an antagonistic quality to them, maybe I also help you circle that drain and say, yeah, your parents seem narcissistic. It almost doesn't matter. If it felt like that, emotionally distant and invalidating and controlling a childhood, doesn't matter. It was still a miserable experience. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely something that shaped you. And that's the key. A parent shapes us. Mm-hmm. So now your personality is being shaped by a person who likely devalued emotion. I would say that over 90% of people who grew up in narcissistic family systems walk around with the mantra, I am not enough, haunting them for the rest of their lives.
Do narcissists walk around with that same mantra?
Okay, so that's yes. Short answer, yes. And it's how it manifests. So for the ordinary, I'm not enougher. And I'm going to own it right now. I'm not enougher.
You're an I'm not enougher.
It's a mantra that's plagued me my whole life. And it makes me work myself too much and feel like I'm not enough as a mom, as a partner, as a friend. Like that's the monkey on my back.
Why do you feel that way?
It's historic for me. I think it's cultural, it's family of origin, it's the educational path I chose. So I always try to overcompensate. And as a result, I often get very exhausted. I can easily feel sad. I might be like, maybe I shouldn't say something. And of course they don't like me, like that kind of stuff. I mean, I put myself out in the world. I'm in therapy. I manage it, but it's always been there for me. Wow. So the way I manage that is by, like I said, sometimes trying to like overcompensate, maybe do more than I should. You're a doer. Like I'm a doer. Like I'll work 100 hours a week because then I'll be more than enough, right? That's very different because I'm in touch with it. Like I have a lot of clients who are like, I'm not enough. And we're all on the same page. So I'm like, we got this. So they manage it. The problem is when a person's not aware of their I am not enoughness. And that's when you get into the territory of narcissism because it's a core insecurity, right? But because they're not aware of it, they're always lashing out angrily at the world because they're so insecure. They're not enough. So why not walk around saying, I'm the greatest. Right. I'm the best. There's no one better than me. Validate me. Like me on social media because I'm the best. Mm-hmm. You can see how that's I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. Tell me I'm enough. Mm-hmm. Come on, tell me I'm enough, but they're not in touch with us. They get very angry when they're not told I'm not enough. That's the validation seeking. Those of us who own it as a neurotic conflict, we in spaces like therapy can catch ourselves and say, no, I'm all right.
Right.
I'm all right.
Okay. So if we think our parents are narcissists and we still have to show up at Thanksgiving and they're still going to come visit their grandkids, how do I manage this relationship without losing my hair.
Okay, so it goes back to what we've already talked about. We've put out there as the classical ways of managing any narcissistic relationship. As soon as you recognize what this pattern is, I always tell people with their parents, go on a little data gathering trip. Spend about 3 to 6 months and watch the patterns. Because as soon as you have the template, you're going to realize the patterns are as consistent as the rising sun. They just like, oh yeah, she doesn't validate this, and she's hypersensitive about that, and she's hypocritical about this. You knew it all along, but once you identify it as a pattern, you realize like it's like this every single time.
You can forecast the weather now.
Exactly. And with that, you can engage in those realistic expectations and the radical acceptance that are critical to managing these relationships. So I tell people, if you have a narcissistic parent or parents, whether you see them every day or once a year, you have got to prepare for those interactions like you're going into a job interview. You've got to take a mindful moment, check in with yourself, make sure your expectations are on board. Remember all of the sort of the little minefields, the places where things pop, and be ready for it. Expectations, boundaries. I sometimes have clients who set timers, who know that their heart out is 3:00 or whatever. And then when they go into the situation, okay, they don't overengage, they don't fall for the critical comments, they don't defend, they don't explain. Sometimes parents will be onto it and saying, "My, aren't you being very quiet?" And they'll dig and they'll go and you'll say, "No, I just love listening to what you have to say. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a while."
Isn't that a game?
It is a game.
It's a game.
And that's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, you're going to get back down in the mud. Once you feel it, it's bubbling up to a toxic level, you got to get out.
What about the person who goes, I don't want to play a game with my parents. I don't.
Okay, then don't. But don't think you're going to educate them on it. A lot of people will say, I've watched a Med Circle video. I've met with you, Dr. Robiny. I got this. I'm going to go tell them. I'm like, slow down, sister. This is not going to work.
You're not going to change them?
It's not going to work, and it's going to inflame them. Because I think so many people want to tell the narcissistic parent, I've got you figured out. The best. I mean, it's like Sun Tzu in The Art of War, right? Once you have, it's almost like you don't want to announce battle until the last possible moment. And even then you want to stealth. You want to be stealthy. You want to come around this and not engage them. Knowing what it is, you can protect yourself from more hurt, but you cannot change them. So a lot of people say, this feels very superficial. I say, okay, if you're deciding between superficial and combative, I'm going to choose superficial any day of the week.
All day long. Yeah.
So that's the issue, is that people say, well, this doesn't feel good. I said, neither did the other.
Right.
Some people aren't willing to give up these relationships. It may be because they love their brothers and sisters, but they don't like their parents are narcissistic, and they don't want to. They want to go to the family gatherings. They might find their children actually do like their grandparents, and as grandparents, their parents are serviceable, so they want to maintain that. But that doesn't mean you need to engage. And talking about it 20 years later ain't going to make it better.
Well said. I loved all that. In our next session, we'll talk about managing a relationship with a narcissistic sibling. Thanks for watching. Check out the links below for more information on how to access this full series, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch new mental health videos every week. Did you like what you heard in this video? If you want to ask a Med Circle doctor a question directly, you can learn how by visiting the links in the description below.
Hi, well, it's Dr. Fox. Hi, well, it's Dr. Fox, licensed psychologist in the state of Texas. And in this video, we're going to talk about the pain and consequence of having narcissistic parents. Now, research has shown increased depression and lower self-esteem in those children with narcissistic parents. If you grew up in such an environment with this type of parenting or parent, you're likely to have internalized many issues and typically a lot of childhood occurrences. In this video, we're going to discuss those issues and occurrences that increase your likelihood of developing depression and low self-esteem. Now, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a suggestion to help you push back on the internalized parent. So remember, knowledge is power. So let's get into it. And please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. And let's go. Narcissism is typically a maladaptive coping strategy of grandiosity that is designed to compensate for feelings of inadequacy. Parenting is hard, right? But when you're combating inner feelings of inadequacy, you tend to resort to these maladaptive behaviors that erode the child's sense of self, their ability to explore their environment in a very confident way, and develop healthy relationships due to having a distorted or unhealthy model in which to work off of, right? So they don't have that template or that schema in order to build that self-esteem, confidently explore their environment, and develop those healthy relationships. Now, these issues, they create these undercurrents you feel of sadness, hopelessness, distrust in yourself, uncertainty about your ability, and so many other beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that came out of your childhood experience. Now, I'm going to go over 3 common antecedents and outcomes of depression and low self-esteem for children of narcissists. Now, the first is growing up in a shaming and blaming environment for typical childhood errors or mistakes. This is like dropping a glass or making a mess. This creates distortions of yourself, and you likely commonly feel that you don't have the right to exist as you truly are. You feel like you don't know or are unworthy of being your authentic self. And what happens is in your developmental environment, because you make these typical childhood errors, mistakes, whatever it is that all of us make, but that narcissistic parent has this distorted, maladaptive view that their child is not supposed to make any mistakes, any errors. So they don't allow for that margin of growth and errors and mistakes so that you can learn from them. And you don't have that confident backing from the parent in order to build that self-esteem to help you go forward and be like, yep, you know what? I messed up, but I'm going to go forward, because it's everybody drops a glass. Everybody makes a mess, and you learn from that and going forward. In that narcissistic parental environment, you don't learn that. You learn that you're broken, you're a failure, that they're all due to these characterological imperfections. That's why you dropped the glass. That's why you made the mess. So, and it's a very false belief, right? But over time, you internalize it and you believe it. Now, the next one, this is needing to be a physically fit and perfectly healthy looking child or young adult. This is not fat or childhood chubbiness is allowed. However, most, if not all kids have fat or chubbiness. It's normal. And this early shaming tends to create the practice of physical self-loathing that takes the form of overeating, anorexia, or bulimia. So even those typical developmental presentations, right, of chubbiness or having a little fat that all of us had, right, because we kind of need it as little kids because it helps us grow and develop. But when it's used against us, because the narcissistic parent has to have that perfect, beautiful child, otherwise it is a negative reflection on them and how they present themselves. So it gets internalized. And certainly the media, right, and TV and social media, they add to all of this. And I think that we see this historically in young girls particularly, that we see this presentation of this idealized thin body with particular presentations and features. But what we're seeing also is that men are catching up. Boys are catching up to that, because now all the boys have to have a body like Thor, right? Or the Hulk, right? You have to be ripped and big and all this other stuff. So these become internalized schemas or beliefs that are maladaptive and unhealthy. And they come from this narcissistic parenting that gets internalized. And that's a big, big problem. right? And it adds to depression and low self-esteem. Lastly, all partners, employers, or friends who like you are inferior. And if you like someone, like romantically, professionally, or platonically, there must be something wrong with them. Or they'd know that you are defective and they would stay away from you. And what happens is this creates that self-destructive cycle that causes poor job performance and unsteady interpersonal and professional relationships. So in many ways, it's a push to gravitate towards unhealthy relationships where their partner may demean them, where their partner may put them on a very similar response cycle, which is sometimes it's very degrading, sometimes it's very deriding. But even though it's unhealthy, and in some level, you know that, right? But there's something comfortable about it. Now, comfortable doesn't mean good or healthy. What comfortable means is it's something you're used to. It's not out of the ordinary for you. So it fits into your comfort zone, because comfort zones can be unhealthy as well. Now, many of these occurrences become internalized over time, and you develop inner critics, family in the head, and shaming cycles that result in depressive episodes and low self-esteem. This is not hopeless, though you may have been taught that it is and that change isn't possible. Now, it takes work, and that's hard work and consistent work over time, but you can totally do it. It is possible to do it. And what you want to do is to combat that inner parent and pain and consequence. And I want you to align with yourself. Now, what this means is that you train yourself to say positive things to yourself and be your own champion, be your own cheerleader. You have to push back on that inner voice and that inner critic and that family in the head. And I'm telling you, do it over and over and over again. We are adaptive beings as human beings, right? So what we tell ourselves over and over again, and the experiences that we have that are cyclical, meaning that we experience them over and over again, they become internalized and we believe them. So if it can happen for the negative, it can also happen for the positive. Now, while you're working to get better and you're saying these positive things for yourself, it's not that easy, because that old maladaptive belief, behavior, and pattern, that inner critic, family in the head, it's going to keep popping up. It's going to keep saying stuff, right, to try to bring you back to that homeostasis, that level that you're used to. So I want you to resist the urge to self-shame and blame. Don't do it. Find the encouragement. Make a mistake. So what? Learn from it, right? The most successful people in history have made mistakes. Everybody does. Learn from them and come back stronger. And you can do it. It's totally possible. It starts with self-alignment and self-encouragement. Is this easy? No. Will this help you? Absolutely. Stay the course, stay strong, and like, share, and subscribe. And thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye.
I'm asked in my practice.
Excuse me.
One of the questions I'm asked in my practice almost on a daily basis is, how do I know if my parent, my mother, my father, my guardian, is a sociopath or a psychopath, right? So there's a lot of people who are confused between the two. They can't seem to understand, what the difference is between the two. Is a sociopath worse than a psychopath? Is a psychopath worse than a sociopath? And sometimes those characteristics of both disorders, or personality disorders, I should say, actually overlap. So that makes things a whole lot more complicated than you could imagine. In today's video, I want to highlight something that I think a lot of you have been asking for, but in different ways, which is, how do I understand my parent who is a psychopath. So I've done many videos on this channel. I'm going to put them around me right here so you can see them. That's about sociopathy and psychopaths. I want to highlight some of the characteristics that are really callous and cold. And it's really hard to accept when your parent is like that. Let me briefly introduce myself in case you are new. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. So if I asked you what a psychopath is, would you be able to give me some characteristics, some adjectives, some descriptors? You know, a lot of people are very confused about the differences between a sociopath and a psychopath. And, you know, I really don't blame them. It's a little bit complicated. And sometimes the characteristics overlap, which makes things a whole lot more complicated than you can imagine. Even as a psychotherapist with 14 years of experience, having worked in a variety of capacities, having worked under really awesome professionals and leaders in the field, I still get confused, you know, as to what's a psychopath, what's a sociopath. And sometimes when it's sitting right in front of me in my own office or right on my computer screen for teletherapy, I still can't detect it. It takes a few sessions, a few different incidents, some clinical observation, some actual paper assessments, and sometimes some peer support from my colleagues to really understand what I'm looking at. You know, I would like to profess that I'm a professional that can identify a psychopath, but it really does take a keen eye. So I'm going to highlight for you what a psychopathic parent actually looks like. Now, one of the characteristics that these particular parents have, psychopathic parents, is that they tend to be very unemotional, very callous, and very depraved of morality. Let me explain. So if you have a psychopathic mother, for example, she's probably not going to be able to communicate with you in a way that a mother communicates with a child. The nurturing, the mirroring of body language and emotion, the internal natural desire to go to you when you are hurt, when you are confused, when you are needy, when you are looking for that parental figure to support you. You know, she's not going to come towards you with a loving heart, a loving mind, right? They don't have that ability to connect. If we delve into the mind and into the brain, as we've been doing on this channel lately, you know, there's some research studies that suggest there's a lot going on with the amygdala, which is the emotional centers of the brain, and the limbic system, which is the emotional centers of the brain. Here's a picture right here on the screen of the limbic system. It really does wrap around that amygdala, which is what I talk a lot about on this channel. And these are the emotional centers of the brain. And in psychopaths, there's some inactivity there. There's not a lot of activity there, which shows that it's a very active part of the brain. So it isn't shocking that these particular mothers, fathers, caregivers are cold, unemotional, and callous. Now, a callous, unemotional father is likely to do some very criminal things with his son or his daughter. This may be the kind of father that, you know, has sexually molested his child, pimps his child, for lack of a clinical term, prostitutes his daughter, maybe utilizes the daughter as a tool to bring drugs to him, or money or fame. This particular father may also do a lot of drug deals, may kill someone, may murder someone, set up a murder, or a company. They may also be a sex offender as well. Now, let me highlight that not all psychopathic parents go down this criminal road. There are some psychopathic parents who tend to be very, very socially astute. They tend to be very socially engaged. So they may even be politicians, vice presidents, presidents. They may also be directors of facilities, judges, attorneys, right? So, you know, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, they don't all go down that criminal road. And I'm sure you're well aware of that, but I want to highlight that in this video so that I don't give the impression that they're all criminal, because sometimes they're not. Psychopaths are different from sociopaths in that they tend to be a little less clumsy. Sociopaths tend to be clumsy in a lot of the things that they do, whereas psychopaths tend to be a little bit more intentional and thoughtful, and they tend to schedule things and really direct and maneuver things in a way that's going to benefit them. And in a lot of ways, they have, for lack of a clinical term, a criminal thinking mind. They're always a million steps ahead of the next person. They always imagine what's likely to be said or what's likely to happen way ahead of maybe somebody who's just normal and natural and caring, and they're getting on a bus trying to get to work. A psychopath always has a million miles that he needs to go in order to feel competent and in control. So in other words, he's always a million steps ahead of the next human being. They are always thinking of things that maybe normal, typical society wouldn't think of. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to do what they feel that they need to do. And that includes murder. That includes sexual assault or rape. That includes being, a child predator, right? Hiding from the law and researching all the ways to hide from the law. That's a psychopath. Now, there's a few characteristics that I also want to highlight that you are likely to see in a parent who's a psychopath. The first thing that you're likely to see is a need for stimulation. So they love guns, weapons. They may kill and harm animals. Now, there are deer hunters. We get that. There's people who fish, right? You have to kill those. Deers, you kill deers, right? But I'm not talking about that. I literally get a stimulating rise and some kind of energy from killing. I have to do it. That's a psychopath, okay? Ted Bundy, for example. That's what we're looking at. I'm going to post maybe an interview in the description box below of Ted Bundy. You can take a look at that interview. It'll show you how calm, cool, and collected he is, arrogant, right? Self-assured. He really did not care about the interviewer. He had all of his trains lined up, so he thought, So they tend to be very different than sociopaths in that way. Again, they're not clumsy. They tend to be really self-controlled, in control. So they get a stimulation or a stimulating type of an experience from killing, from bypassing the rules of society, for doing things to people that you wouldn't ordinarily expect them to do. They do get a rise out of that. Psychopaths are likely to poison you, right? That's an example. They'll go past that boundary. Most of us will feel uncomfortable opening up a drug and putting some in somebody's drink. A sociopath may do it as well, but a psychopath really could care less. A parent like this may also do something like kind of keep you confused about important details that you need to know to understand things in your world and your family. They may tell very harmful, detrimental, life-altering lies. They like the topic of death, and they may get some kind of rise out of that topic as well. It wouldn't shock me if some work in funeral homes. It really would not, Psychopaths who are parents may also laugh at things that are not very funny, that are pretty gruesome and gruely, that are really far beyond the boundaries of society. They may think there are things that are funny when normal functioning human beings would be very disturbed. The next thing that you're likely to see is a propensity towards or for manipulation. What I mean by that is that they are living, breathing human beings who have to manipulate. There is never anything that is clear cut with them. Honest, authentic. They're always lying. They're always hiding. They're always stealing, manipulating, cheating, whatever they need to do, right? You don't matter. They don't have empathy. Remember, they are unemotional. They are callous. So they engage in pathological lying. They lie about everything, even if there's no benefit to it. That's what a pathological liar is. There's no immediate benefit, but they're going to lie because that's what they feel that they need to do. It may also be stalking with psychopaths as well. Go ahead and check this video out right up here where I did a video maybe a year or two ago about psychopathic stalkers and psychotic stalkers as well. And I talk a lot about what they do when they stalk you. I also have a full stalking series on my channel. I'm going to try to pull those videos out and put them in the description box for you. A psychopath will likely stalk. They love pushing the boundary. This is just who they are. They can also be very calculating. They can also have this deep desire to harm and to bypass the boundaries of another human being. So we might say something like really gruesome sexual behavior. Some fetishes may be in there as well with these particular parents. They may also molest and sexually violate their children in ways that you wouldn't believe. I once had a colleague who had a client who tied his daughter up in the basement and would commit sexual acts because he was that much of a psychopath, and it didn't bother him, and he would send her to school every day like nothing ever happened. When my coworker had the police go into the home, you would not believe what was found in that basement, and it was just disturbing for me to hear, much less for the people that had to go in the basement and see it. So that's a psychopath. A lot of times, and this may be a general discriminatory statement I'm going to make, but a lot of times psychopaths know where to live. And a lot of times they live in very hidden areas. They either live in inner city, broken down, dilapidated areas where it's really crowded and, they're into drugs and prostitution and pimping and all that kind of stuff. Or they live way out in the rural areas where there's no civilization, houses are many miles away, and there's not a lot of legal protection. There's not a lot of law, enforcement out there. It's just, mainly the deers and the animals run wild, and you might find a bobcat out there and some other things, I remember traveling across 6 states one year with my mom. I had different speaking engagements across the nation, and we went through 6 states together. And I remember driving down these dark roads. We got lost, and we drove down these dark roads. It was a lot of like cabins, and we saw a bobcat, we saw deers, we saw some dead animals on the road. I mean, it was something. My mom was like, we're not gonna live. But I remember looking at this cabin that we were parked near. We were waiting on the police to come and get us because we literally got lost. Our GPS dropped. And so we couldn't find a way out of this place. This is like where we were, guys. Okay. And, we're waiting on the police, and I look over out of my passenger side of the window, and I'm like, is that a cabin? And we're looking at this cabin. On the outside of the cabin, okay, is literally a dead deer head and, some tools, and like tools that we weren't used to seeing. And we're like, this is not okay. And so these particular parents, might have some really gruesome kind of things in their home. And actually at this cabin, we saw like a play set in the backyard, in the back of the cabin. It was like kids live there. Although when you look at the front of the cabin, there's like all these tools and a deer head. Like, so it was very weird, gruesome. And the whole area was like dark. There was no street lights. And the only lights that we had was the headlights of our car and our cell phones, So I'm sure I've painted enough picture for you that this was pretty disturbing. These are the kind of areas that you're likely to venture into, if you have a parent like this, okay? I'm going to also say grandiosity, a shallow affect, poor behavior regulation and control. I mean, all I can say is that Ted Bundy met all of that. Grandiosity, shallow affect, poor behavior control. He just didn't have it. And so you're likely to see this in a parent as well. If you have a father who's like this, there's probably some domestic violence, probably some rape within the family. Sometimes incest is also found in these particular families. And, if I come away from that gruesome side of psychopathic parents, if we go to the more socially acceptable psychopath as a parent, it's probably going to be a lot of domination and control, a lot of manipulation, a lot of fear tactics, a lot of obsession. There may be sexual abuse that the mother is well aware of in the home, or that the father is well aware of in the home, but they're not going to stop it. There may be parents who encourage their children to be psychopaths, to research things on the internet, how to murder, how to kill, how to deceive. I had a family one time, I'm going to say about maybe 9 years ago. And they came in for a consultation. Thankfully, they weren't clients, but they came in for a consultation. And the mother and father were both teaching their kids to research things online, such as how to kill, how to deceive, how to lie, how to manipulate. It was horrible. So these are the kind of parents that you are likely to experience. These are kind of characteristics that you are likely to experience in parents like this. And there's so much more that I could talk about in this video, but for the purposes of keeping it short and sweet, we're going to pause it here. Go ahead and check this video out that I did a couple months ago, or weeks ago, I should say, on sociopathic parents. You're going to get a little bit more information in that video. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around with us. Hit that notification bell as well so that you can get notifications every time I post a video. Let me know in the comment section below what you want to see next. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
For the adult child, there's a lot of upside to being estranged. It's tied to this narrative of personal growth that I just talked about, and happiness. There's also enormous social support from therapists. This is a topic of a webinar that I talk about in a chapter in my book about the way that contemporary therapy contributes to this problem by making it seem like any feelings of guilt or obligation should be pathologized, that's being codependent, or your parents being emotionally incestuous or narcissistic. All these things that in prior generations were considered good involved parenting have now become pathologized. And so for the adult child, there's a lot of upside and a lot of social support. There's always been estrangements. The idea of cutting off a parent as emblematic of a kind of existential courage is certainly new. Whereas before it wouldn't have been considered in that camp. Whereas for the parent, so there's all these upsides for the adult child. For the parent, there's no upside to it. It's all shame. It's all loss. It's all grief. It's all being cut off from the people that matter the most to you. It's all being excommunicated from a society of parents and grandparents who mean a lot to you. So there's this enormous disparity, but that also informs the way that I work as a psychologist when I'm doing family work with an estranged parent. And if I can get the adult child in the room, what I'll tell the parent before starting the work is, this isn't marriage therapy, meaning marriage therapy, you both come in as equals and you talk about your perspective, your adult child talks about their perspective. I mean, your spouse talks about their perspective, and you both equally have a claim on the future of the relationship. This is more like divorce therapy, where you've been able to, your partner's left the marriage, but they're willing to come back and hear you out. That's more what it's like, which means there's enormous disparity in the power and an imbalance in the power, which means that parents do realistically have to do more of the work. They have to do more empathy. They have to show more leadership. They have to make amends to the adult child for the ways that they felt hurt to them. They can't get defensive. They can't explain. They can't defend. Those are all things I think are important and necessary for parents to do. But I think parents are still kind of wedded to this older idea, at least the ones who get in trouble with their adult children, this old idea that the adult child owes them something, they owe them respect, they should be grateful for all the sacrifices that the parents have made, and that just sends things off on the wrong footing. I work with a lot of immigrant parents in my practice who often left, cultures and societies of enormous privation, and sacrificed everything to bring their kids here, to raise them in the American dream, send them to an Ivy League college. And then the kids go to the Ivy League college and they get this kind of more Euro-American-centric view of what parenting should be like, which is basically, this valorization of the child, and idealization of the child, and the childhood experience. And then they're saying, well, my peers were raised in this kind of way, and you raised me in this way that I think is emotionally abusive, so I'm cutting you off. And the parents feel like, we left everything, we sacrificed everything for you, and because we were stricter, than your Euro-American friends, you're going to kick us to the curb. And it doesn't mean that the parents should just not have to make repairs or amends or empathize with what that much more strict behavior felt like to the adult child. Is just the adult child to not actually factor in everything that the parent did for them to get them, say, into an Ivy League school and provide them with a life of intense privilege, is just morally wrong as far as I'm concerned.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Question for parents out there. Can you imagine your child tearing up your house in the middle of a temper tantrum? And this was so disturbing to me. Take a look. It's a reality for one woman. This video of her destroyed home has gone viral. According to reports, her teen son, who's 15 years old and 270 pounds, suffers from mental health issues, did all of this. It's a nightmare. She was crying on that video, and many parents are struggling dealing with a situation like that and know where to turn, because if you call the cops, then you end up with a death, so it's just a tough struggle for parents out there. And while we're on the subject of family problems, a new study suggests a growing divide after those adult kids leave the nest. More of them are making the tough choice to actually cut their parents off, no longer communicate or deal with them, period.
Dr. Jasmine Boone is here to talk about this new trend of adult children cutting ties with their parents. I think the number, Dr. Boone, is about more than 60 million adult children who've cut ties with their parents. Why?
It's boundaries, right? We've always been taught, especially depending on the culture, you don't get to choose your family, which the implication is you're stuck with your family. You have to deal with it no matter what. I think as people are in therapy and beginning to heal and learn more about what's appropriate and what's healthy for them, they're saying, no, I don't have to deal with abusive behavior, toxic behavior. They're saying, I realize I don't have to deal with this. I'm an adult. Maybe I even have my own family now. And so they're setting really, really loud boundaries. It's actually pretty healthy.
And the days of saying, like we've heard in the past, well, it's your mom, it's your dad. You just have to love them the best way you can and meet them where they are. Some people are saying, hell no, I'm moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to say that now, right? So it used to be very taboo. No, that's your family. Those are your parents. You get to respect them. And, the term narcissist is thrown around so often now. We usually relate it to like romantic situations. People don't even realize your mom can be narcissistic. Your father can be on the narcissistic spectrum. What do you do in that case, right? So if a family is crossing your boundaries, not respecting your boundaries, you do get to say, hell no, I'm out. Absolutely.
And what about those family members that are constantly trying to bring you back into the fold with your mother or your father? How do you deal with them?
Hey, they get boundaries too. Everybody gets boundaries. So long story short, a boundary is just what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. If you are telling them, hey, this is the decision I've made, that's it, and they're not respecting it, you know, you can talk to them more, or you can set harsher boundaries with them, or even non-negotiables. And so it's very, very difficult to tell family, I don't roll like this anymore. And so you might have to show them better than you can tell them sometimes.
An odd question is love automatic in a family? Or do you have to attain that as well? Because I've met some people who said, you know, it may be my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, but I just don't have those feelings towards them.
It's very possible. You know, love is not always automatic. Love is so many things. And one of those things is an emotion, right? And one of those things, it's a verb. I have to show you love. But let's say, for instance, you know, someone has an abusive father, a history of sexual abuse. It is very possible that I don't choose to love that person anymore. Even if you're my father, even if you're my mother, if you've abused me and caused me trauma and harm, I can choose to step away, and maybe I don't even have those feelings of love for you anymore. I don't believe it's always automatic.
And adult children have cut ties more with their fathers than their mothers. And is that likely because there was some type of maybe physical and or sexual abuse, or the reasons could vary?
Yeah, I think the reasons could vary. And, you know, I'd honestly have to do research into the reasons why studies show that more often, but it doesn't necessarily have to be any type of abuse. It can be a lack of support. It can be they're overly critical. Maybe the father was inconsistent in and out of the life, you know, that type of thing. Mothers tend to stereotypically be more nurturing and more loyal. So we have that societal influence to kind of stay loyal to mom, but also mothers play more of a nurturing role typically in our lives. So we don't see as much boundary setting and removing ourselves from our mom's life.
All right, Dr. Jasmine Boone, always good to talk to you. A fascinating topic here. We appreciate your time on The Factor tonight.
Okay, fathers, that was actually 5 videos in a row. That is a lot of information that I just shared with you. So I don't expect you to process it all right now, but this live stream is being made, so you can always go back and check it out. You know, fathers, I participate in a lot of men's groups, and I participated in a men's group about a month ago. No, 2 weeks ago, actually. It was about 2 weeks ago. I want to share a story with you. So, you know, when I participate in these men's groups, this one was online, and I was summoned and asked to participate, and not necessarily be a facilitator, but just participate. And they were going to introduce me, what I'm doing. As far as me, you know, I've written a book, I've raised these 4 girls, and, you know, what I'm doing on my YouTube channel. So there were about 30 men in this group. You know, they were sitting in a circle, and they were going around introducing themselves. So I got to this black father, and he raised his hand. His hand had been up. I had noticed his hand had been up when they were going around the room. And he starts speaking, and, you know, they're asking, they said, well, you know, why is your hand in there? He says, well, I want to address Ephraim. And they were like, okay. So he says, well, I've been watching his YouTube channel, and it's bullshit. He's got a bullshit YouTube channel. He's a bullshit father, right? So the facilitators were like, hey, we're not here for that. I said, no, let him speak. Let him go. You know, if he's got a feeling or whatever it is, let him go. So the thing is, he addresses me. Now, understand, I'm on video. I'm on the screen. And I wish I could have got the recording. I really wish I could have got the recording, but I didn't. So anyway, his thing was, I'm a bullshit black father. I don't know what I'm talking about. My videos are bullshit. So I asked him, I said, well, what exactly is your issue with my YouTube channel, my videos? He says, well, I was watching one of your YouTube videos. You were talking about fathers are responsible if their daughters end up on the pole. I said, okay. I said, how many of my videos have you watched? He says, well, I didn't get through that one. I said, okay, so you got through half of a video, and your conclusion is I'm bullshit as a black father? He says, well, and another thing, he says, I can tell from your thumbnails on your videos, your daughters are biracial and you're not in a position to be talking about black girls. And, he was just trying to go in on me. So I was like, okay, it's nothing personal. So what I explained to him was this. I said, now, if you've got a problem with my videos or my live streams, and you have an opinion, that's fine. Don't got a problem with your opinion. Don't have a problem with you disagreeing with what I'm bringing. I don't have a problem with any of that. But you don't get to make personal attacks and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and you're going to dismiss what I'm doing. I said, now, if you're going to come for me, you better make damn sure. And you better make sure you have a solution. Otherwise, don't come for me. And don't be making up shit, right? So yeah, it pissed me off, whatever. And, we got through it. And the thing for me is with fathers of daughters, right? You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. You don't have to agree with what I'm doing. Keep it pushing and keep it moving. It's that simple. But you don't get to make personal attacks. You don't get to come for my girls. You don't get to talk about I'm not a black father because I have biracial daughters. That makes absolutely no sense. That was stupid as hell. That was ignorant as hell. But the thing is, at the end of the day, your ass is sitting in a man's group. I have 4 successful daughters. So obviously, I've gotten a lot right in my life. If your ass is sitting in a man's group trying to figure out what's going on with you and your baby girls, because he had 2 daughters, he explained that. They were both teenagers, and they don't want nothing to do with them. So see, we didn't get to go into detail why they don't want nothing to do with their father. But you're going to come at me? Come on, dog. I'm not the one. I mean, you got the right one, but I'm not that guy. Come on now. If you're not solutions-based, do not come on my YouTube channel talking shit, because I'm going to check you. I'm going to give you the energy that you give. That's how life works for me. Okay? So don't come at me sideways and come at me talking crazy when you don't have solutions. I get tired of so many men, right? Because a lot of men, you can't tell them anything. You can't tell fathers shit. You want to try to come for me when you don't have solutions? Not going to work out for you. I promise you that. It's not going to work out for you, because I'm not going to allow you to talk crazy to me, particularly when you don't have solutions. So I just wanted to share that with you because that was crazy to me. It caught me off guard and it caught me sideways. But you have fathers like this in men's groups that have no answers and have no solutions, but yet they want to try to come for other individuals that are trying to help them become better as fathers and do have solutions. It's all good though. But I just wanted to share that with you. That happened a few weeks ago. Okay, fathers. So that was a lot of information I just shared. As far as the videos, there were 5 of them in a row. And feel free to check them out. This live stream, you're probably going to have to watch more than once because it's a lot of information visually. Okay, I have 3 videos left that I'm going to run I have 2 to 3 videos left that I'm going to run back to back. And then we're going to finish up this live stream for today. So I appreciate you fathers for hanging in there and hanging around and sticking in there. So like I said, all my live streams, you could always go back, check them out. And I upload them to videos. So I have them on live streams and I also have them on videos as well. Okay. So let me get this next video set up and we're going to run them back to back, fathers. Okay, fathers, next videos, back to back.
I read your story and your boy was accused of some bullying and you were ashamed as a parent and you thought, I'm going to teach him a lesson. He lost his place on the school bus and you said, you know what? You're still going to have to go to school, so you're going to run there. And a lot of us don't have an issue with that at all. A lot of us would say, fair play, that's a decent punishment. However, Ruth, you're saying what?
Well, my issue with it, Brian, because I remember talking about it at the time, is then why post it? That's your idea of punishing your child. You didn't let him get away with the bullying. But my issue is what do you gain from posting that online for the world to see?
My two children are completely different. So some parents may not understand. My daughter is very easy. She never gives a problem. I can look at her and she'll behave. But for us parents that do have a child that is very difficult, that is not following directions, that is always trying to bend and break the rules, you have to step up as a parent and try to do something. Otherwise, eventually, it's going to be a court case against the child. And then you're going to end up with the child that's, in the system, breaking laws.
No,
and
Brian,
that's what
Brian, I understand that. And I think a lot of people don't have a problem. Actually, you were applauded the fact that you did discipline your son, that he'd been bullying on the school bus, you weren't having it. And you said, you're not getting a lift to school, you can walk or you can run. It's the posting of it. Is that how does that help him? Surely the punishment was that he had to run to school whether it was raining or not.
But he's saying he's showing it as an example to other parents.
Well, I think that there are people that think that was all about you, saying, look at me, aren't I a great parent? Was it about you?
No, actually, it was more or less just inspiration for friends. People were thinking it was shaming of my son. The thing is, he didn't know he was on the video. Unlike you see the other videos where the child is well aware, it is being as a shameful act. This was just a child running.
Yeah, but is that not a privilege? Is that, sorry, we're having a little problem with your sound breaking up. I hope you can still hear me. Was that not a privacy issue with your son though? So he didn't know you were filming him, but then you posted that online for everybody to see. That's humiliation.
I only posted it for my actual Facebook friends to see. It was actually my friends that are the ones that made this go viral.
Okay.
I actually posted it to my personal Facebook page.
Having control, this parental control or respect works two ways. What if your son, you said, right, you're going to run to school. And what if he had said to you, no, I'm not? How could you have enforced that? That's when it gets really tricky. I think you must have a good lad deep down because he obeyed his father. He respected what his father said. But what if you had a child who said, I'm not running to school?
I think there would be a case-on-case basis. I know with my son, for the most part, I don't think I would have that issue. If I did have that issue, what we would probably do is sit down and have a conversation about it and talk about what led up to this, which we had already done previously, which is why I didn't get much grief.
Wouldn't it have been just to interrupt you, on a practical level, as a parent, the first port of call would be to sit down and communicate your issue with your child. The first parameter that you discussed was the fact that the school had asked him not to be on the bus for 3 days. That's the punishment. At that point, is it not your duty as a parent to think about offering some kind of support and guidance to him and to advise why this has been carried out and then to acknowledge the punishment that he's been given, to actually share it with your friends? Just to bring what Ruth's comment is, to share it with your friends is even more humiliating with respect than to share it with the rest of the world, because they're the people who know you. They're the people in your group who you are meant to have a relationship with, and your child will feel humiliated by. All of the evidence, it's not a little bit of evidence, all of the evidence clearly states humiliating and shaming children is the worst type of discipline.
Well, let's ask you, Brian, what was the reaction from your son when he knew? Well, first of all, he accepted his punishment, fair enough. But then when this went viral, has he been embarrassed, ashamed at this? How's he dealing with this?
Definitely not shamed or embarrassed by it. It's actually become a bonding thing for me and him. We actually joke back and forth about it. If he's getting out of line, I'll joke with him like, son, I'll make another video. And he's like, oh, dang it, daddy. And
I think what your son's trying to say as well in that is please don't. One of the reasons why we shouldn't go around shaming our child or believing it's a bonding experience is primarily because the only thing that a parent should offer a child is a foundation of safety. When you say that everybody else's needs usurp theirs, you essentially give them an experience where being at home and talking to you about their issues, no matter how difficult or shameful or challenging, you have their back. That isn't saying to be easy on them. That's not about snowflake generation, the classic parenting thing that we're told about parents who communicate with their children. It's about respect. Look, would you, if your wife did that, have her run down the road following her, filming her? No, you wouldn't, because one, it would be domestic abuse, and secondly, it would be completely irrational. Why would you do that to a child? It's much
But
like
it's a lesson in life.
But it's
He's
not
teaching him a lesson in life. And you know what? It seems to have worked in that case.
Of course it's worked in that case. I'd be terrified if my father filmed me, humiliated me, posted it on a thing where I'm 20 years of my lawyer.
You see, I think, no. I think the thing is, that Brian has the authority that his children would listen to him. I have 4 children and I love them dearly. But I don't think if I said to them, right, you're running to school tomorrow, I think they would say, Dad, take a hike.
On your bike.
On your
Do you know
bike
what that
yourself.
is? So you're right, Eamon, they would. Because when you feel non-afraid of your parents, when you know they love you and that they have your feelings of security invested at their centre, of course, my children would never expect me to do that because they are not afraid of me.
Can I just ask you one last question, Brian, then we have to say goodbye. Do you think that your son, his behaviour has changed because of that punishment or because he's frightened of you?
Well, to give an answer to all of that kind of, he's not because he's afraid of me. It's because he respects me. He understands that I will do what I need to do to make sure he's on the right path to be a good, responsible adult.
We've all seen it. Parents We've all seen it. Parents shaming their kids on Facebook for bad behavior. Now, one father is shaming the shamers, so to speak.
And his video has gone viral. Millions of views in just one day. CBS 4's Cynthia Demas spoke with the father and son featured in the video sensation in Fort Lauderdale and found out about the inspiration for the video hit.
I'm here to teach my son a lesson.
At the beginning of this video, it appears Wayman Gresham is going to shave his son Isaiah's head as punishment and then post it on social media. But then the twist.
Here we go, y'all. Wait a minute. Here, come here, boy. Come here. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. There's no way in the world I would ever embarrass my son like that.
The Gresham said they can't believe all the attention this video's getting. Almost 20 million views in 24 hours.
Totally unexpected. Nevertheless, I'm happy for the positive and healthy dialogue that's taking place.
It's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
What's not cool, Wayman Gresham said, are shaming videos online like this.
Turn around.
Where children were actually shamed by their parents. It was posted on social media for the world to see. Wayman, who works with kids as the magnet coordinator at Lauderhill 6 through 12, says these shaming videos bothered him terribly.
Kids should not be humiliated. We should leave them with a sense of self-worth.
Head of child psychiatry at Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, Dr. Daniel Bober, says shaming your children online is detrimental.
Well, I mean, I think it's really a form of organized child abuse. I mean, this is clearly emotional abuse and it rises to the level of child abuse. I think it's an assault on the self-esteem.
With this video, the Greshams are just happy their positive message resonated with so many millions.
I do consider myself a servant, and if this has created healthy dialogue, and I think I've done my job.
Now, interestingly, this video was put together by Wayman because it's a scene he was considering putting in a play that he's written. A, he says he believes in the message wholeheartedly, and B, he wanted to send it out on Facebook to some of his friends to see if it resonated with them and should make it in his play. By the way, yeah, it did make the cut. Very, very popular. His play is called On Deaf Ears, and it will be playing Father's Day weekend. For more on that, go to our website, cbsmiami.com. For now, in Fort Lauderdale, I'm Cynthia Demas, CBS 4 News.
My mom works so hard, bro. My mom works so hard, bro. Let me tell her how much I appreciate her. Hi, Mom.
Kalau food pala, advice sana tetula big match sumay mom na. Bala talim balo ku food tayo siya mo so, abli tayo siya kunya si bayo ko mawite.
This may not be a popular opinion, but I gotta say, y'all, we gotta do better. This video to me is a clear example of what many of us have, which is suppressed trauma. And we laugh at our pains. This is how a lot of us tend to deal with pain, is with humor. I'm big on that. I'm big on that. But let's sit and think about that for a second. Because now that I'm a parent, I could never get myself to justify logically and consciously mistreating my child for whatever reason, whether I'm going through hardship, whether I'm going through financial distress, whatever the case may be. I do not have an excuse to mistreat children. So I know it's a sensitive one, but I think we do need healing in that department as a community. This kind of behavior should not be tolerated. You do not get to mistreat your child because you came in the country, had to struggle a whole lot, make a way for yourself, learn the language, find work, learn the system. I get all of that, and I sympathize with that. We are grateful. We are grateful. But let me say it again. It does not justify mistreating children. And I have a theory. Guys who grew up with moms like that, is it just me, or could there be a correlation with how they're treating women in the future? We see how Haitian men are treating Haitian women these days. I mean, if I was a dude and I grew up under this kind of verbal abuse, would I want to be with a woman who reminds me of that? You let me know. You let me know. But I think we need healing. Let's heal. Because this is not acceptable. You would never allow anyone else to talk to you that way. I get it's your mom. It's my mom. It's my mom. But keep her accountable. Keep her accountable.
Okay, fathers. What are your thoughts on today's live stream? Parents, fathers of daughters. This is what I will say when it comes to putting your children online. I don't understand that at all. If you're shaming your child and you're doing it in your home, that's what you're doing in your home. Why do you have to share what you're doing with the world? I don't understand that. That makes absolutely no sense. So then when they become adult children and they don't want to be a part of your lives and they cut you off, you're sitting back wondering why. Today's video is childhood trauma is not okay. That's the name of today's live stream. Childhood trauma is not okay, parents. And the foolishness and the nonsense that we bring in our children's lives, as a father of 4 daughters, I honored my daughters in every way, shape, or form. I cherish my daughters. I think what a lot of parents fail to realize, and they forget, children are not our property. Children are not property. They are a gift from God. God gives gifts and God takes them away. Children are a gift from God. They are not property. They are not ownership. We do not own them. You've heard the old saying, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. Okay, that was big in my generation. Children are not property. I want to make that perfectly clear. So when they're old enough and they're adult enough, and as they say, we're not fucking with our parents, there you go. Because they're a gift from God. None of this makes any sense to me. When I was doing the research, I came across so many videos. It was difficult for me to pick which ones I thought would have an instant impact, because there's so many parents out there. When I talk to these adult children, I tell you, it's crazy. A lot of children have trauma from their childhood because of their parents. Gen X, baby boomers. We blew it a lot with our kids. We did. And now we don't want to own it. So guess what they're doing? They're not owning us. Fair is fair. All right, fathers. Another live stream. I'm here every week. Fathers of daughters. And I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. And I love to hear your comments. I love to have you comment on all my live streams, all my videos. Comment on them. Give me your thoughts. Tell me what you're thinking. All right, fathers. I will be back next week. And presenting another educational, informational live stream. This is what I do for Grow That YouTube channel. So I appreciate you. All right, mi amigos, hasta la próxima semana. Que bien, paz. I'm out. Fathers, you know the routine. This is Ephraim B. Martin. Peace.